evening. Welcome to the November 21st meeting of the Skokie 68 School Board. Can I get a roll call, please?
Bill Jordan.
Here.
Hyatt.
Here.
Lonegro.
Here.
Ruffner.
Here.
Sterbins.
Here.
Sullivan. Borshaw.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hereby open the public hearing for the e-learning plan for 2024 to 2027.
Thank you. So before we begin, I just wanted to mention that our proposal of an e-learning plan, very timely today with the weather upon us. However, that would not qualify in any way as an inclement day. This is more of a proactive step. It does not necessarily mean that we would choose to utilize an e-learning plan, but we can't even consider utilizing one until we go through the process of conducting a hearing and developing a plan. So this is very much a contingency effort. We would base that decision on the amount of training and timing and preparation we'd be able to provide to our staff, our students, and obviously, the family members who would be also involved in that. But I just want to emphasize again that we would still have the ability and the decision-making underway to consider a traditional snow day. This just adds another element to it and can be used in other circumstances as well. Last year we had an unfortunate circumstance due to an outside water main that caused the school to have to close for the day. That just one school, that could have been an e-learning day. So again, it's an option, it's a consideration. There's pros and cons, and we'll definitely hear, I think, from some of that as well. But to help us learn a little bit more about the criteria that we have, our very own coordinator of curriculum and school improvement, Diana Schmidt, has offered at a very last minute request to help us due to an employee's absence and a team member. And Diana's going to help just walk us through some of the criteria. So thank you again for being here, Diana.
Good, thank you. All right, well, I'm gonna kind of briefly go through this because I know that you have some of this in front of you. But to kind of talk about the alignment to our strategic plan, it was really difficult to tease out any one part of our strategic plan specifically for this because this is very much all encompassing. So when we're talking about cultural responsiveness and equity, that's very much the foundation of why we're trying to create an e-learning plan for all of our students to be able to access from home. Again, we want to make sure that our students are prepared socially, emotionally for this type of pivot that we all have a little PTSD around as we were planning this out. And of course, this relates to our teaching and learning, safety around technology, and then in turn our communication and engagement with our families. So the background and requirements for this are that our e-learning plan is really, as Dr. Gren said, about offering us an option, making sure that we're prepared proactively. Again, like I said, as Christy sat down to make this comprehensive plan for the teachers, we all had a little bit of PTSD because we have a lot in place from those unfortunate times, but a lot of it needed to be updated and refreshed. And our plan is based on the school code that kind of outlines the expectations, so the way that I'll describe it today is around those expectations and very brief explanation on a very comprehensive plan that we have. So first we have to move through these steps of creating this e-learning program, bringing it to the regional office, the school board as we are right now holding a public hearing, and then the program must ensure that these 12 criteria that we'll talk about today are met. So the first piece of criteria is that it has to have at least 5 hours of instruction or schoolwork time. So you'll see there that we've allotted 9 o'clock to 10:30 for our ECC morning crew, and then 1 o'clock to 2:30 for our afternoon. And then our kindergarten through 8th grade schools will function from 9 a.m. to 2:30. Each of the buildings have already broadened out their own individual plans. That's, again, in a more comprehensive plan that would be teacher facing. Criteria 2 is that we have to ensure that there is equitable home access. So currently all of our students are assigned an iPad. Our district works at registration for our families to be provided with internet access, so that's ongoing support that we do outside of e-learning. And we have our daily learning platforms that we use consistently, which is Seesaw and Canvas. And our third criteria piece is around providing paper materials as an option as well. So that's something that logistically we've talked through in different teams. of how we would have paper copies to make sure that this is about consistent programming and not something that's separate from what's being taught in the classroom currently. Criteria 4 is ensuring that we have appropriate learning opportunities for our students with special needs. And just as we meet the needs of our students during a regular learning day, we've mapped out a whole process in order to support all of our students if we were to move to e-learning. Criteria 5 is about monitoring and verifying participation. So we have attendance procedures that are currently in place, but specific to e-learning around, for example, the junior high, that we would take attendance every class period. Criteria 6 is addressing student participation and kind of thinking about that engagement piece. How do we have to change our pacing? How do we differentiate for the needs of our students during this time? Criteria 7 is providing effective notice to students and families about e-learning. So we have our current communications that are in place whenever we have snow days, like our mass emails, our robocalls, websites, and other publications. Those would continue to be in place, and they would just communicate if something were to be, or a change to be e-learning. Advanced notice is really important as a priority because our K-2s don't currently take their iPads home. So if we were to choose to do e-learning, this is something that we would have to prepare for in advance. Criteria 8 is around training our staff and students. And like I've mentioned, we have a very comprehensive plan that Christy's put together and gotten communication from different teams, and we're still revising and refining it. And thorough support and communication for our students that requires remembering how to use Zoom, making sure that they understand what their technical support is. All of that is part of that plan. The 9th piece of criteria is around advanced technical supplies and support. And as I mentioned before, these are things that we already have in place. It wouldn't really be new for e-learning. All of our staff have laptops and iPads. Everything is web-based so that we can access to post assignments really from anywhere or respond to our students and families as needed. And then our last few criteria have to do with opportunity to get some feedback on the plan. So our union would review and provide input. And again, as I mentioned, Christy has kind of brought this to teams to get feedback along the way as we've been building out the process. Criteria 11 is reviewing and revising as needed. And so we would, if we were to have one e-learning day, we would build in a reflection point so that we could circle around and address any needs as they come up. And then the last piece of criteria is around communication of expectations. And they require us to do that at least 30 days prior to use. So pending the board approval for this, we would have written communication sent out to all of our stakeholders. That's about it.
Thank you, Diana. We do have space for board inquiries before we allow for public comment. That will be just on the plan, not the traditional public comments. Any board member questions?
I have a quick clarification. For 12, when you say communication will be sent to stakeholders, like the communication around what the plan is gonna look like, not like in 30 days, we hope, if there's, okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you very much, Diana. I will now open the hearing to comments from members of the public, noting that any other issue besides the e-learning plan should be held until the appropriate segment later this evening. Does anyone wish to comment or have any questions related to the e-learning plan through 2027? Yes, please, thank you. If you could state your name and your relationship to the district. Oh, I do have a microphone, sorry.
Hi, I'm Jana. I have children at Highland Elementary. I looked at the plan and I was just curious if we could add more clarity about the criteria that will be used for when a snow day versus a e-learning day will be called. Because it's hard to plan, or if you're a working parent, if you're gonna send your kids off to maybe an aunt, uncle, grandparent, or if you're gonna have to figure out how to get them online and learning. So a little bit more specification about how that decision will be made would be really helpful as a parent. I think the information about K-2 iPads being at school was already addressed. And then my third thing was around just a little bit more on the format of the day. I know the stamina to stay on a computer is a lot different than stamina to sit in the classroom, and so is it any guidance on have to be on a Zoom meeting for 5 hours straight, or if there's breaks and things. We were not in this district during COVID, we were in a different district, so a little more clarity on how that's done here would be really helpful. So those were my sort of questions and comments as I read it, thank you.
Thank you. Will those be addressed by you want to follow up?
Yeah, I think we would do a follow-up communication with families.
Wonderful. We'll prepare a follow-up for that comment and question. Any other questions or comments? Wonderful. Thank you all. I call to adjourn the public hearing portion of our meeting. And I think we
Sorry, are there any other comments at all?
Yeah.
Yes, there will be public comment, yes. We will now open our meeting for regular public comment. There you are. Please remember, this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, the superintendent or the appropriate person will get back to you. Please state your name and your connection to the district. Please limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes. And finally, avoid comments specific to any person, student, or staff member, respecting their right to privacy. Do we have any registered public comments tonight? Do we have anyone? Clearly. Sounds like somebody wants to make a public comment. Yeah, we have a form in the front. I don't know if you were able to see it and fill it out. We have a form to register for
You want
public
me to go
comment.
register?
Don't worry about it now. Just state your name and position. Clearly, thank you.
Hi, my name is Fernando Campos. I've had 3 children go through District 68. Sorry, I was rushing to get here. And one that's in 6th grade now. I apologize if any of my comments offend anybody. That's not the purpose of them. But my question is to ask why. Why don't we have a single, maybe there's one, but in my research, why don't we have a single administrator of color? Why have my children gone through school, never seen anyone like them in charge? Research indicates that when school administrators reflect the diversity of their student population, it can lead to improved student outcomes, particularly for underrepresented groups, by fostering a greater sense of belonging, increasing cultural competency in leadership, and creating a more supportive learning environment for all students. Our school demographics do not represent not only our administration, because that's far from it, but even our teachers. Sorry. All good. Our district has a representation of 33.7% according to the Illinois State Board demographics, yet our teachers represent 75% all white. That's a huge disparity. Now, on the long-range strategic plan, nothing is mentioned about not only retaining, forget retaining, hiring, right? We're not even at retention, we're just at hiring teachers of color. Now I ask, and I have more things to say, I'm sorry, but I ask our board to quit writing sweet nothings on the webpage. And I'm calling for action. I've been teaching 25 years, the last 20 at Evanston Township High School, and I'd more than gladly volunteer my time as a consultant. I have Beyond Diversity and Equity training, and the passion that maybe my children won't see somebody that looks like them as a leader in a school, maybe as a janitor, maybe as a teacher's aide, but not a leader. And that's what my kids have been told. I had a conversation with the 4 of them. One's home from college right now. And they asked me to come, and I said no, because I might say things that might embarrass them. But that's not what I'm here to do today. So, I have a meeting with you, Dr. Grenz, next Tuesday, 8:30 in the morning. I'll be there nice and early. Thank you for taking my meeting. And I just want to read the rest of this that I wrote, because I think it's important. And I'm not angry. I'm just baffled that these are the numbers. The key findings from school research on administrator diversity. The positive impact on student achievement. Studies have shown that when students see administrators who share their racial or ethnic background, it can lead, and does lead, to higher academic achievement, particularly for students of color. An increased sense of belonging. Representation and leadership can make students and families feel more connected to their schools and more likely to engage in their education. Culturally responsive teaching. Administrators who reflect student demographics can better advocate for culturally relevant teaching practices, benefiting all students, families, and schools. Improve school climate. A leadership diversity team can contribute to a more inclusive and positive school environment where students from all backgrounds feel valued. Teacher retention, when we get some teachers, when we get some administration of color, we can address this one. Research suggests that teachers of color may be more likely to stay in school district when there are administrators of color present. My kids go to Old Orchard Junior High, and that guy right there is a hell of an administrator, a great administrator. Mr. Hanson, you are. So this isn't to come and say that we don't have great leadership already. But my question is why? That's in the past. My question was why, but my question now is when. When is this board, when is this district gonna come to action? I spoke with Dr. Greenwood, was his name? The past one? Garwood, that's the street. Dr. Garwood. And I tried having this meeting with him 8 years ago, and it went nowhere. I found myself just arguing, and I took a break. But just the other day at our dinner table, we were talking about this very problem. And it's a problem, it's an issue, and it's grave. And, you know, my wife's like, well, what are you gonna do about it? And I said, you know what, I'm gonna go to my first school board meeting ever, and I'm gonna make a comment. So thank you for listening to me, and I'm sorry I'm nervous, I'm rushed and flustered, but I am excited about what's gonna come from this. Thank you, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks. We have any other public comments tonight?
I'd like to bring one, please.
Yep. Please take the podium and state your name and your relationship to the
Thank
district.
you. Hi, good evening. My name is Pete Dager. I have a son, Chris, who's at the greatest of the 3 elementary schools, Highland. And as he sings in his song, my son was also at the Early Childhood Center under Dr. Jacobellis, and it was fantastic. Mrs. Coliani was his teacher, and I can't say enough good things. I wanted to bring up, when we first met with Mr. Grenz, I remember there were 2 things that kind of struck me, a lot of the parents brought up. One was the food, which is, as usual, it's the, you know, is it prison food, is it good food, that kind of thing. I wanted to bring that up and see if there was any way that other school districts have been able to solve this problem. Is there any way we could, perhaps as parents, purchase a meal sometime and check that out? I don't know if that's something that, it's just something there. I know other school districts have done that. I know up in Lincolnshire, they allow parents to purchase a meal. They don't actually go into the cafeteria and do it, but there's a separate way they can purchase a meal from the food service. That's one. And the other was, if you remember, sir, was busing. Number one issue in Skokie seems to be what everybody kind of raised up about school buses, the bus stops in the mornings and afternoons, cars going right by, things like that, and it'd be a problem. So I filed a Freedom of Information request with the Village of Skokie, and in the previous 12 months, only 10 tickets were issued for driving past a stopped school bus. And in a village of 68,000 people, I think 10 is ridiculously small. I talked to the police chief about it. I live right over here by the MCC school as well. We even talked to the principal there, Mr. Habib, great guy, talking about the amount of traffic, things going on. We need to work on that. I know that in talking to other parents that also attend Highland, the kids that attend Highland, they kind of bring that up too, that it's very dangerous. So I'm wondering if there's something we could do with the village. Perhaps we could have you, Dr. Grenz, attend a Village of Skokie meeting one night when they do on Tuesdays and Thursdays, a couple times a month, and maybe to bring that up or to see if we could kind of link you guys together with the Skokie police and just see if we could do something about that. Usually what has worked in other districts is that you pull somebody over, it's very visible, and it, you know, for the next 2 months or so, that stop is going to be a pretty good stop. There's also some services in the country that will install cameras on buses at no charge to the district or the village, and they make the revenue back by billing people essentially that break the law. So just an FYI, something to think about. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Any other public comments? Thank you all very much. We will now move on to our next agenda item, which is our superintendent's reports.
Thank you to everyone for being here as well as for the public comments. Appreciate your feedback. I shared this with the board when I was in the interview process. You may have noticed we are leveraging our digital marquee a lot more than usual. We've had a notice out there for the past approximate 6 days. November 15th was a very special day. It was School Board Members Day. That's right, it only comes around once a year. And what I shared with the board when I interviewed for this position was that it wasn't until recently that I realized that my very own mother served on my school board for 18 years. And I just sent a message to her this morning before the meeting. I said, "How long were you on the board?" And I got like 7 text messages back. I said, "Okay, enough. Got it." But 18 years, and I don't think I realized as a student how much time goes into this volunteer service role that I do now. And at the time, I kind of wondered where she was, but I had no idea what she was doing. And I can only imagine that some of those similar sacrifices have been taking place with our current board members. So as a small token of appreciation, we have a nice little certificate for them for their service, as well as a very economically purchased sweet treat to maintain our focus on wise fiduciary decision making. I just want to say thank you for all that you do on behalf of the community, as well as myself and obviously our students in the district and family members. It's a very thankless job, but it's a super important one that we really need now more than ever. So thank you all very, very much. Moving on to a few fall highlights. We had a lot of parent and community and guardian engagement over the last few months. In October, on the 25th, Old Orchard Junior High hosted its annual Community Culture Night. Turnout was an absolute smash hit. We had tons of really well-behaved, excellent students, parents, guardians there. Dishes donated from across the community. Whole series of cultural food, as well as activities and other opportunities and exploration. It was a real celebration of our community's diversity. It was a great showing of staff as well. It was a really unique experience for me as a newcomer here in the district to just see the actual diversity of our campuses and how well our students and our families mesh and merge with one another. It's really pretty amazing and immaculate to see from an outside perspective. So I want to give a shout out to the Old Orchard team there. At Stetson, October 24th, they hosted a parent-guardian academic opportunity. It was the first of its kind. It was called a Family Learning Fair. Sounds more like a game show, the Family Learning Affair there. Math and literacy activities were the focus, and families were given a takeaway bag with additional resources and supports as well. Feedback was overwhelmingly positive, so shout out to Stenson and the work that they did there. October 29th, the amazing Devonshire PTA helped organize a donation drive where students, teachers, family members came together. Cards were written, clothing was organized, donations with the help of Diana Juarez here, who does a lot. We'll talk about more in a minute on that. And a local coat closet helped get donations to those who need them. So amazing work from Devonshire. At Highland, just recently, November 14th, they hosted their annual family reading night. One of the most attended events of the year. They had over 800 students and families come out. This year's theme was heroes. Families were able to read together. They were able to hear stories. There was even some occupational elements, a firefighter present for good reasons, not because an alarm was pulled or anything like that. Students were even able to read to animals, including a dog, a bunny, a giant tortoise, a hissing cockroach, and get this, Mr. Hanson, a bearded lizard. Families also engaged in maker activities. There was a photo booth, scavenger hunts, just an overall really, really great event, led primarily by our librarian there, Ms. Lisa Talbert, so shout out there. Tonight we're going to hear a little bit more in a minute from our Early Childhood Center and some of the work that they've been doing focused on SEL, so looking forward to that. As a commercial, we have an upcoming Parent University on December 3rd at Old Orchard Junior High, but it's open to all parents and community members, of course. The focus is on tech safety, and the hook is, are you looking for ways to ensure your child's online safety? Absolutely relevant today, now more than ever. That'll be from 5 to 6, again, Tuesday, December 3rd. We'll have district tech team members present. We'll talk about things like parental controls, monitoring tools to help stay informed, controlling and being aware of what children are doing digitally on phones as well as devices. Parents and guardians will be able to learn practical strategies for managing screen time at home and fostering healthy habits. Huge topic nowadays. And then internet safety will be also an element in which we'll have the Skokie Library available to help with some ongoing conversations between parents, guardians, and their students. So looking forward to that and appreciative of the team for organizing that event. Later on the consent agenda, I'm almost done. There will be an included item around the Illinois school report cards were recently released at the end of October. This is an annual release. We touched upon most of that information in our student achievement presentation in October, led by Dr. Samajedny. But I did want to just highlight one really important item from it, which was a reduction of 6.3% in our chronic absenteeism rate. So that means students that are missing school of more than 10% or more, so 18 days or more, has gone down 6.3%. Sounds like a small number, but it's actually a large number of students. And it's definitely, when you look at our trend line from the last 5 to 6 years, it's a big improvement. And I think it's a great signal of the relationship work that the staff has been doing with the students around finding a trusted adult, the engagement work that our staff has been doing with their instruction. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think there's a lot more that goes into that number that isn't as technical as it sounds. Thanksgiving recess is just around the corner, November 27th to the 29th, just as a reminder. Our next board meeting is December 19th. It's a little bit ahead, but first day of winter break is December 23rd, and then school resumes on January 6th. Okay. Without further ado, I will introduce Sharon Jacobellis, our wonderful Director of Student Services, and a few of her colleagues who are here to talk about SEL and our amazing Early Childhood Center.
Well, thank you so much, and good evening, members of the Board of Education and those that are here tonight. Today we're proud to present on the topic of social emotional learning at the Early Childhood Center. Come on up. This presentation aligns to the following strategic plan: our social emotional learning and the whole child, teaching and learning, communication and engagement. And together we'll highlight how SEL supports our youngest learners in developing the skills they need for lifelong success. As we move into this next slide, we're excited to embrace this year's theme, Watch Us Grow. Each year, our early childhood staff thoughtfully selects a theme that embodies our collective goals and aspirations for the year. After a vote, this meaningful theme was chosen to celebrate the growth we witness in our students, staff, and community every day. I'm so excited to be with you here today because I brought along some very special pals. They can't wait to meet you. They've been practicing something extra fun for you, so without further ado, take it away, friends.
Alright, ready, friends?
Friends, why don't you come up front? Don't be nervous, friends.
That's for the camera.
How are you feeling? How are you feeling? How are you feeling at school today? Are you happy? Are you angry? Are you sad or calm today?
Hi, Keisha. It's so good to see you out because before I came here, I made sure I took some deep breaths.
Great job, Keisha. What about you, Ty? How are you doing tonight?
Oh, Mrs. Brown, there's a lot of people here today. I'm feeling a little bit in the blue.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ty. Why don't you go take some deep breaths with Keisha?
Okay.
Hi, Mrs. Brown. Hi, Al. How are you tonight?
I'm so happy. I was looking forward to this all week.
Thank you so much, friends. You really know how to bring the fun. Now let's meet some real life stars of our early childhood team, and we're here to make every day something really fun and special at the Early Childhood Center. Please help me welcome our fantastic social worker, Carrie Brown, and our blended classroom teacher, Chrissy Murphy, and our instructional teachers, Danny Cray and Katie Coliani. And together we'll show you how social emotional learning is at the heart of our early childhood program and how it supports our youngest scholars to learn and grow every day. I'll let you take it away from here.
All right, so this is just an overview of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about ruler and what it looks like in the classroom. We're also going to talk about some of the calming strategies that we teach in our program, as well as family engagement, our weekly out SEL groups, and finish up with our assessment tools. So ruler, that's our district-wide SEL curriculum. That's an approach to social emotional learning that was developed by Yale. It teaches emotional intelligence to people of all grade levels. RULER is an acronym. It stands for Recognizing, Understanding, Labeling, Expressing, and Regulating Our Emotions. The primary goal for pre-K within the RULER framework is familiarity with the mood meter, which is what you just saw our puppet friends use. Understanding some of the basic emotions that are listed up here, as well as learning and practicing some regulation and calming strategies. So this year we have introduced the mood meter, so we're going to show you some of the ways we've used and learned about the mood meter in our classrooms. So first we have a little video of the mood meter at the ECC.
Just hit play. And
There.
then you can make it big.
There we go.
Sorry.
No audio.
Feeling happy?
Oh.
Happy, yay! I love to hear it, David. Yeah, how are you feeling today? Happy! Can you give me a sentence? I feel happy! I feel calm. You feel calm too? Yeah. Can you feel more than one feeling at once? Happy and calm? Yes. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Let me tell you guys a story about when I used the mood meter. Okay? So yesterday, I was here at school, and it was lunchtime, and I opened up my backpack, and I realized I forgot my lunch. Ugh! How do you guys think I was feeling when I figured out I forgot my lunch? Man, I was so mad. I was like, oh, I'm so hungry, and I just wanted to eat my lunch, and I was feeling so mad. So I was right here. I was living right here in the red zone. I was feeling mad. How are you feeling, Irene? Happy? All right.
Why do you feel sad? Miss Mommy. Yeah, that's okay. Green does mean calm. Mary, what color are you feeling? Blue. What does blue mean? Blue is sad. And Hanya, what color are you using? What's this? Yellow. What does yellow mean? Green. It does. If you mix it, you can make green. But what does it mean on the blue? Is it happy or sad? Oh, good. Happy. You're right. Yellow is happy. Let's see if we can match them up, okay? Okay. motivated.
Alright, so we are gonna talk a little bit more about some of the activities that you saw in that video. But first I wanted to show you, so this is our big mood meter right in our ECC hallway. And this was created as a follow-up to a lesson about practicing what basic emotions look and feel like. So the students post for pictures of the emotions and we put them up on our mood meter.
So these pictures show some of the ways that we embed the mood meter into our classroom activities. These activities also align to the Illinois Early Learning Standards as well as our curriculum. The curriculum we use here at the ECC is called the Creative Curriculum. It was developed with a focus on fostering a child-centered learning environment where the teachers guide and support children through hands-on and inquiry-based activities. These strategies emphasize building strong relationships, promoting social emotional development, encouraging exploration, creativity, and critical thinking. So we know that all children learn in different modalities, so we make sure to provide exposure to the mood meter in different ways as well. The picture on the top left shows students using fine motor skills to sort based on colors in the mood meter. The picture on the bottom left shows students using Play-Doh to represent the 4 basic feelings on the mood meter. And the picture on the right shows students drawing faces on their individual mood meters.
In early childhood, our related service providers provide push-in services into our classrooms. Here are some examples of them working with our children, teaching the mood meter within their domain areas. As you can see, the middle picture shows our occupational therapist working on a fine motor sticker-based activity with the colors of the mood meter. The other pictures show our social worker and school psychologist playing a mood meter matching game with our students. On another note, we are all so excited about our new building having shared therapy rooms. They will be Jack and Jill style between classrooms, and they're going to be a great, quiet place for our therapists to work with our students.
All the teachers utilize various self-regulation tools within their classrooms. The picture here on the right is a picture of my classroom where we start each day with breathing activities and stretching prior to our circle times. Some of the steps include taking deep breaths, counting to 5, or using positive self-talk. The picture here on the left, this little cutie was feeling very frustrated. So she took a seat on the ground, she closed her eyes, she took a deep breath, and then she told her teacher she was immediately happy again. In each of our classrooms, we have a calming corner. This is really an inviting space where children can go to regulate their emotions, whether they're feeling happy, sad, excited, or frustrated. It's really wonderful to see children use this area independently and be able to look at books and use different calming items such as stuffed animals, sensory items, social stories, and use comfy seating.
So we send home monthly activities for families to do together at home. So here's one example. In September, we sent home color paper for families to make a mood meter to use at home. And here we have this little guy, he uses his mood meter with his parents on his fridge, and the family shared these photos of his success with us. Each class also receives a weekly SEL group led by a social worker, myself, or our school psychologist. In addition to ruler, we also tackle other themes using the Al's Pals lessons, so those were those lovely puppets that you all met a few minutes ago. And that's the SEL component of our creative curriculum, which Ms. Cray discussed earlier in the presentation. So I'm going to highlight just a few of the themes from Al's Pals. One area that we focus on is social problem solving. We teach these problem solving steps and practice during our larger SEL groups by role playing or playing games. And then we also have opportunities to practice and generalize in the moment during play. So as mentioned earlier, as a related service, we are pushing in to the center-based play weekly. And our teachers and TAs also do a wonderful job. They find opportunities for in-the-moment practice and generalization of these skills. And we also do a kindness month in the spring. During groups, we read books about kindness, learning about being a good friend. We role-play kindness scenarios. We also have a Caught Being Kind initiative. So in the middle here is a picture of our kindness tree.
And we filled it with flowers with examples of students that were caught being kind. And here are just a few more examples of some kindness activities that we've done in the larger group. So in the first picture, the students came up with their own ideas of what a kind kid says, does, and is. And these themes are also incorporated into the teachers' lessons in the classroom as well. So the activity on the right is a sorting activity of kind and unkind actions that was led by a teacher.
Throughout the school year, we do assess our children on their ability to regulate their emotions and behavior with our assessment tool from the creative curriculum. Each color band represents a different age developmental level, which helps the team to determine if a child requires more support in an area of development. This information is reported to families as part of a child's full progress report that is given to families 3 times a year.
All right, thank you all for coming today. Let's say goodbye to our friends.
Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. We're glad you came tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Always raising the bar there. Little interpretive dance, what's next?
Our next item of business is the reading and acceptance of minutes. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from October 17th, 2024 Board of Education Field meeting.
Roll call, please.
Hyatt?
Yes.
Lonegro? Yes. Ruffner?
Yes.
Sturbins?
Yes.
Warshaw?
Yes.
Bill Jordan?
Yes.
Thank you.
The consent agenda is our next item of business. The consent agenda includes the personnel report covering employee leave of absences as posted with the agenda for this meeting. Financial reports, which includes fund balances for October 24 and the statement of position report. Pay orders and expenditures, which includes accounts payable, statement of cash flow, and the P-card monthly report. Board of Education policy second readings, and the ISB Illinois school report card. Does any board member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Not, may I have a motion and a roll call vote to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented by the board president.
Lonegro?
Yes.
Ruffner?
Yes.
Sturbins?
Yes.
Warshaw?
Yes.
Bill Jordan?
Yes.
Hyatt?
Yes.
Thank you. We now move to our reports and discussion items, starting with our tax rate information.
Alright, no puppets for this.
Oh, man.
I have no puppet.
Kenya is here, she's gonna help us. She's gonna help us look at the district CAV, she'll look at possible sample tax bill and some of the implications for us. Thank you.
So everyone has the tax memo that we generated in the packets, and we're gonna go over the first topic of discussion, the district tax information. This district has a very well and strong mixture of taxes. Comes from your residential, your commercial, and your industrial. And your commercial and residential split is almost 50-50 in this district, which is amazing. That's very rare in a school district. So that's a good thing. You don't rely heavily on the residents of the community, but you also have a commercial strong standing as well. So that's not normal in a normal school district, so that's a great thing. So I did put on there a percentage pie chart in the memo, and as you can see, commercial is roughly 45% of our tax dollars, residential is 53%, and industrial is roughly 1%. Next topic of discussion is home tax information. I thought this was a key thing to do and actually put a real tax bill. I'm not gonna say who gave me access to their tax bill, but I appreciate her. That was the only way I was gonna access that information. So she provided me access to see her tax bill, and I actually put it just like you would see it from a regular homeowner on here. So as you can see, school districts are extremely high on the tax bill, but it's not just us. 219 is on there, Oakton College is on there as well. And then it also displays the municipalities and the townships as well, so you can see what their taxing base is to a homeowner. So it was very interesting, but we are roughly 2.9%, almost 3% of the tax bill in our area. And then 219 and Oakton College are like roughly 5 and 6%. And then I also broke down that in a pie graphic chart as well for you to visually see. And that gives you the same information percentage wise. Then we went to discuss township. Township is all the schools in this township. So we wanted to get a break on how we are in the area based on the other schools in the area. So I call them feeder schools. Some people don't like that word, but that's what we call them, feeder schools. We all feed into 219, so all the elementary districts are called feeder schools. So I roughly did all the school districts in the area from 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 73 and a half, and 74. I did include in the levy presentation 219, but for this purpose, I only did the elementary districts. As you can see, we are the largest EAV, but I like that number, and I'll explain why later. And then 74, I believe, has the second highest EAV, and pretty much all the other feeder school districts are about similar in price when it comes to EAV numbers. The next section of that chart, I broke down the EAV from a per pupil basis. So you can see how it's broken down on a per pupil basis to all the different schools. Then we rank them from the highest to the lowest. And we rank roughly high on the EAV per pupil basis, but we also are the second largest population capacity of all the schools in that area. And I did write those numbers down. So 69 has roughly 1,665 students. 68, we have roughly estimated attendance record of 1,590 students. The third largest school district that's very comparable to us is 74. They have 1,106 students. Everyone else is below 1,000. Some are below 500. So I did that information, and I also put 2 years of each school district's tax rate, and then ranked those as well. We're ranked pretty low because we have the 8th lowest tax rate out of all of the schools that are feeder districts in the area, which was very low.
8th highest.
Right.
No, we got 2.7.
8th best.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Less.
right. We're toward the bottom.
Yeah, toward the bottom.
Just making sure. Right.
We're toward the bottom. Number 1 was 69, but they almost are similar in number of students, but their EAV is also 50% less than ours. So they have to spend because they don't have enough money compared to us. So you need to compare all of them together to see the dynamics of how they spend their money. And in closing, just wanted to remind you, we have a competitive area, like I stated before, for our district. We'll continue to do this and try and make this stable for homeowners and the commercial, and make sure everyone is aware of what we're doing and what we're doing with the tax dollars. And nice comparison of all. That's all for my tax rate information.
There we go. Thank you.
I might as well stand up there. Bring up the next one.
Any questions on tax rate before we move on to
Yes.
the levy? Thank you.
So I have a memo for the tax levy, a tentative tax levy, and then I also have a PowerPoint for the tax levy. The memo just breaks down the summary of the same information you're gonna probably see in the PowerPoint. So I'd rather start with PowerPoint instead of read off the memo, if that's okay. Alright. So we always start with the strategic plan, and in my department, I feel like I touch all elements of the strategic plan. So I do teaching and learning, facility and safety, and community engagement. This presentation today, we'll go over the history of the levy, collections, and then also show you the proposed tentative levy, and then to do some comparison of levies between other school districts and other areas. So we're Cook County. They have a different way of doing things than other counties. So I stole this from a Cook County presentation webinar workshop I went to on Friday. I thought it was kind of colorful and nice to make it look good and why our tax bill is late, stuff like that. But it also shows you the process and why they do the things we do and how they're a little bit structured differently than all the other counties. So in Cook County, you can see it's a little different than other counties. All property is assessed at a 33 1/3, which is the normal number you hear, but Cook County is not that way. Cook County assesses all residential property at 10%, commercial at 25%, which is why it teeter-totters. And they always have to figure out a factor rate for that. So the equalizer is what balances it out, and that number usually changes every single year. It does not stay the same, it changes, and as you can see in other counties, it's always one. It never changes. But in Cook County, it fluctuates between roughly 2.5 and 3.5 every year. So sometimes we don't know what that number is gonna be till probably beginning of next year. So when we do the levy in the December, which is required for us to do by the Tuesday in December, a lot of these numbers we are estimating because they're not set in Cook County yet. So I also provided a visual that I stole from the Cook County presentation of all of Cook County. Chicago, Northwest, North suburbs, South and West, Southwest suburbs of Cook County. And we are roughly the one in the middle. You see how Chicago, their tax base and EAV varies up and down, but it's always the highest. We're somewhere in the middle, and south of Cook is always lower than the north of Cook. This is also an example of the CPI, which is a consumer price index, which also is the number that is used to give us our new growth of money each year. And this is basically historical data that shows you where that number has lied over the years. It shows you its average been roughly about 2.5%. As you can see, the last 2 years, it has been above that, and it's gradually now going back down. So that number basically tells you how much more money you're going to receive each year from your tax base. This number right here, which we don't know barely until now, because that's when it comes out. So we try to guess, and we all communicate with each other to try and figure out what's going on and watch the market and see where it lies. But roughly, the average has always been in the last 10 years, roughly 2.5%. As you can see in this chart, in 2010, it was 0.1. Never been in history, but that was the first time for that. So that was a really scary moment for school districts, because 0.1 was the extra money you received from prior year. So that was a new thing and a very scary moment, but it bounced back the next year, which is good. So this right here is a comparison from the tax extension in 22, the tax extension in 23, and what we propose for 2024. So roughly, I just wanted to give you a snapshot of multiple years to see the trend and where we're going, where we haven't, increased it dramatically. We're staying stable. We're staying under the 5% for no truth in taxation, which is a good thing. But you can see that, and that's outside of new growth and debt service. Next slide shows you all of those same elements in the actual rate components of them. Education rate and all the other funds and all the different rates. As you can see, those rates have been consistently pretty much stable and the same, but all about the same 2.5, 2.75%. Outside of new growth and debt services. The one in red has been new for the last few years is a levy adjustment. That's a new rule that came out where we can get some of the money back when people appeal their taxes. And that's done, and that number is done by Cook County. So roughly, we've been about $250,000 each school year for the last 2 years. Again, this is my little chart that I gave you and provided before in the memo of all the neighboring township school districts. The one in red is the ones that did not provide me their enrollment from my email that I asked them. So I used their numbers from last school year. And I just provided you some visual graphs of that same information, just to see it in a graphic standpoint for EAV by township, schools, EAV by the population by the schools. Then the next slide is the rates by school. And then the next slide is the new property by all the schools. I do want to note I included 219 in this. Any of the things that they get when a TIF come off, Some schools, feeder schools also get that money as well. So you can see theirs was extremely high because they had a TIF came off that was in Waukegan or somewhere. I had to call and ask because I was like, where's my money? And it didn't belong to me at the time, so I didn't get any of that. But I did call. But as you can see, our new property went up very high in 22, 15 million. And then it went back down. So we did have some things that came off TIF-wise in that year. So that was out of the norm. That's not the normal. So it would probably be fluctuating around that same number, maybe a little higher until about maybe 27, 28, where that new development will be coming soon. So you'll see that number go back up. And this is just a visual of a homeowner's tax bill that shared it with me. Gave you a comparison in 22 and 23, and also a graphic of that as well. This was a new public act. You know, they're always adding new public acts for us to do, where we have to put in our fund balances, our expenditures, and our levy presentation, and also our budget presentation each year going forward. So this is this document to show you auditing expenditures for the last 2 years. 24 is unaudited because that has not been finalized yet, and then our average of those, and then our fund balances, and then the average between the fund balance and the average expenditures at the bottom. And that is basically it for my tax levy in terms of for tonight. Any questions?
No questions from the board? Thank you very much, Kenya. Moving on to,
Sure.
let's move on to bonds.
So more of a financial focus. Sorry, it's a heavy number night this evening. If you were tuned in at our October meeting, Kenya also provided our financial projections for the next 5 years. And the district is looking very good. Our healthy fund balance, we have approximately 25% of our total annual expenditures. And that's over our required minimum of 10%. And as a result, as you've seen, we've been able to do a lot more than many other districts. And as a result, we're very fortunate for that. And you can see it in the campuses, and you can see it in the classrooms, and you can see it in the future projects coming up. We also talked about in October, regular review with you as a board to talk about ways to maintain that health and also to be strategic when we can and to think through some of that. So the district has historically, every 3 to 4 years, talked about possible bond processes to see where we can maintain our funds and be really smart and good stewards of our taxpayer dollars. And to help us learn a little bit more, just as a learning opportunity tonight, no decision making per se, is Elizabeth Hennessy, who is here from Raymond and James. Elizabeth is no stranger to District 68. She's been here in the past. And we welcome you, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Grant, for having me.
Yes.
Yes, great. Okay, so, gosh.
You're okay.
That's right. Nice to see you again. It's been several years. So I just put together a little presentation to take you through an update on municipal bonds, where you are in terms of debt limit, what the district has done historically, and what options you might want to consider looking forward, given the depth and breadth of your capital plans. Okay, so just quick themes for the municipal market today and moving forward. As you know, over the last couple years, we've seen the Fed increase rates 11 times. Since September, they have decreased rates 3 times. And they have a meeting in December. It's unclear whether they will lower rates again, but they're able to lower rates because the economic indicators like CPI and producer PPI are coming in lower, more in concert with their target, which is 2% inflation. So we're still above that, but that's the direction, and that's where we've been headed this year.
therefore we've been able to have these rate cuts. It's unclear whether they're gonna cut rates again in December, there's a lot of questions about that, given the new administration coming in, so they've kind of left that open. Here is a chart that shows the what we call the yield curve. So these are tax exempt rates for municipal bonds rated AAA, which is the highest possible rating. And on the y-axis, we have the yield or the interest rate. And on the x-axis, we have the number of years going out to 30 years. So that dark line represents what we call the yield curve, and that's a normal sloped yield curve where short-term rates are lower and long-term rates are a little higher. So that each point on that curve represents the average for 30 years. The red line is where we are now. So you can see the short-term rates are currently elevated above that 30-year average, which is a direct result of all those Fed rate increases we've had in an attempt to kind of tame inflation. Now, that red line is lower than it was just 6 months or a year ago, but it is still elevated. And after year 6, the red line goes below the dark line. So that shows that those rates and longer term rates are actually lower today than the 30-year historical average. So we're not in too bad a shape based on where we've been. So I wanted to talk to you about this legislative update in the bond world. On June 7th, the governor signed into a law an act that allows fire prevention and safety bonds, otherwise known as life safety bonds, to be issued outside of the tax limitation law. So right now, and the district's history is issuing bonds that are subject to what's called the debt service extension fees. So that's a limitation on how much principal and interest you can pay back on your debt service levy each year. And that amount is part of the tax cap. It was capped in 1994. So whatever you had in an outstanding debt service bond payment in the year 1994, under the tax cap can be extended at that same level. So life safety bonds and working cash bonds are the typical non-referendum bonds that can be issued within the tax cap. So now this new law allows bonds specifically for projects approved by the Illinois State Board of Education for health and life safety purposes to be issued above that limitation. So it would be like a referendum bond. It would result in a tax increase if you were to issue these types of bonds. And the projects that you would issue them for need to be approved, have life safety amendments approved by the regional office in Cook County as well as the state board. So that's a really great opportunity for many districts in the state to take care of their buildings with life safety bonds. The other part of this act is bonds approved by the voters at referendum are not subject to the debt limit, and the maximum retirement period has been extended to 30 years from 20 years. The third piece is interesting, and it is to help school districts address early childhood needs, and of course you're building an early childhood center. But if you wanted to build an early childhood center in a freestanding building not attached to any of your existing schools, prior to this law, you would have to go to the voters for a referendum. Now you don't have to do that if you're expanding early childhood services within your district. However, this part of the law does not come with any funding, so how you build that addition would have to be funded with either district fund balance or non-referendum bonds. Okay, so now we're just gonna take a quick look at the district's debt limit. So first we're gonna look at your working cash bond limit. Working cash bonds, again, are those non-referendum bonds that are issued under the cap. The whole idea is that they extend the tax rate at its current level for debt, does not increase it. And right now you have a net working cash fund bonding limit of $26.5 million. Here is your outstanding debt service, And you can see that you do have some of these non-referendum bonds outstanding through levy year 2026. So let me just kind of go through the chart with you. We have on the left-hand side is your tax year or levy year. Then we have your equalized assessed value, which is most recently known from the 2022 levy, or 23 levy year of 1.2 billion. Next, we have the debt service extension base. That's the maximum amount you can pay off in principal and interest in any given year. And that reflects a CPI 5% for 23, and then for 24, that's 3.4%, as we just went through on your 24 levy. So your debt service extension base, that limit to principal and interest to be paid off in any one year is $3,275,557. Against that, you have outstanding debt service payments in 24 levy year of $2.2 million. You can see in 25 and 26, it's also just under that $2.2 million. The dollars in the green space represent the additional non-referendum bonding authority that you have. And so you can see for 24, you could pay off an additional $1,079,000 of debt service, in 25, $1,080,000, and in 26, $1,077,000. And the final column on the right looks at your tax rate for debt, which is simply the current non-referendum bond payments divided by the EAV, which results in an 18 cents, which is very low debt rate. I like this graphic better because it kind of shows what we're talking about. That red line is the debt service extension based limitation. The blue bars represent the actual debt service payments you have outstanding. So this is a big slide just to show you all the different types of bonds that Illinois school districts can issue. Under the yellow columns, those are paid from a separate tax levy, the debt service tax levy in this case. The green area is another type of bonds that are paid from operating funds, and those include debt certificates, lease certificates, and alternate bonds. I've highlighted working cash bonds because those are the most typical type of bonds that districts issue. They can be deposited in the working cash fund and either be used for operations or or capital projects. If they're used for operations, they're issued on a taxable basis. Taxable interest rates are about 1% higher than tax exempt rates in the current market. If they're issued for capital projects, they can be issued at tax exempt rates. So on this chart, you see all the requirements to issue working cash bonds. The district has followed these procedures in the past, including a 30-day petition period and a public hearing. So just a history on the district. Since 1994, the district has issued non-referendum working cash bonds and repaid them quickly over 3 to 5 years. And that's a very efficient way to use your tax base. It keeps your interest costs low, and because we're talking about a fixed amount of dollars that you can leverage, the lower the interest costs, the more proceeds you get for your bond issue for your needs. So in recent years, including in 2022, the district issued taxable working cash fund bonds, utilizing the proceeds for operating needs and capital purposes. So back in 22, the conversation was, and rates had just gone up with the Fed at that point, was are you gonna use this purely for capital projects or do you intend to use it for operating as well, which had been the tradition in earlier issues. So that's why those 22 bonds were issued on a taxable basis, but kind of looking back and talking to Kenya, looking at the history, a lot of that was used for capital projects. So it's possible they could have possibly been issued on a tax exempt basis, or at least a portion of them. So the district has completed and committed to many capital projects, including updates and repairs to Devonshire School, the Early Childhood Center addition to Old Orchard Middle School, and updates and repairs to Highland School, as well as future life safety projects. And the district has kept the debt service payments on working cash fund bonds flat in the past. So that was always in 22 and prior years, always kind of a target for the board to keep that payment very level, despite the fact that the base was growing. Okay, so right Right now, as I mentioned, you have over $1 million available in the current years due to growth in the CPI. So the following scenarios, I have 3 for review here, is to look at non-referendum working cash fund bond scenarios that you could issue either this year or in future years, at different levels of repayment, but all repaid over 5 years. So again, keeping it very short as the tradition of the board. Okay, so just to, again, to review these projects, you've moved ahead with significant capital projects, adding geothermal heating cooling systems and building the early childhood center to Orchard Middle School. So 24, the Devonshire School project was $9 million. The 25-26 early childhood center is gonna cost approximately $16.7 million. Highland School estimated at $10,342,000. And life safety work in 27 and 28 estimated at $2 million annually. So you add all this up between 24 and 28, we're looking at over $40 million capital spend for the district. Okay, so this chart looks at capital projects impact on the operating fund balances. And the district has been, very strong in its operating fund balances. Currently, according to the FY25 budget, looking at the education fund, O&M, and working cash fund together, the ending balance in 2025 is equal to 103% of the expenditures in 2025. So that's very, very strong. If we go to 26 and we look at the spend for the remainder of the early childhood center, Highland School renovation, then the fund balance goes down to, in these 3 funds where the funding is coming from, to $26 million, which is 64% of the fund balance expenditures in FY26. If we move forward with life safety in FY27 and 28 and look at the ratio at that point, we're at a fund balance of $22 million or 51% operating fund balance as a percent of expenditures. So you can see how that comes down. Now, let's talk a little bit about what that fund balance is, what your policy says, and what you've described as an appropriate fund balance to the rating agencies in the past. So the district has a very strong bond rating from Moody's Investor Service. It's AA1. Going back to our presentations to the rating agency, despite the fact that your fund balance policy, which is in line with Illinois State Board of Education, press policies that are really, in my opinion, boilerplate, they do not necessarily match the practice of District 68. The practice of District 68, as described to Moody's back in prior years, was that you would want to operationally keep at least 50% of your annual expenditures in your fund balance to give the district flexibility, to give you cash flow when Cook County decides to pay you 3 months late. It has happened in the last 2 fiscal years. So that is what kind of goes along with a AA1 rating and the district's past practice. So if you wanted to issue additional working cash bonds to maybe offset some of these capital expenditures and enhance your fund balances for future, we come up with 3 options. Again, each option is paid off over 5 years. This first option is $8.6 million of tax-exempt working cash bonds. All these bond scenarios are tax-exempt because they're going to go towards these capital projects. So in this case, this would be paid off FY levy year 24 through 28 within the district room and future board's flexibility to issue bonds again in 29. If we use up that $1 million surplus, the tax rate goes up by 8.8 cents. That does create an increase to the owner of a $400,000 home in the district. That impacts about $98. Okay, so that was the first option. And again, here is the graphic. The blue bars are the outstanding payments. The
The green bars are the new payments ending in 28 at, up to the debt service extension base, which is currently just around 3.3 million. I mentioned the interest rate we've estimated on these bonds in current market is about 3.72%. We always add a 25 basis point cushion, so if you were to issue those today, they'd be under 3.5% on the interest rate. Okay, so now option 2 is an example where, let's say we don't take all of the additional $1 million that is available in that debt service extension base, maybe we just take 500,000. So kind of splitting it in half. And in this case, the tax increase is 4 cents, and the impact is for a $400,000 home is $45. But because we're not taking that whole $1 million increase, the proceeds in this scenario is $6 million. And then here's a graphic on the 6 million. You can see how the bars are below the maximum blue line. And then option 3 is $4.6 million. This would be issued in February 26. This would keep the payments right at that 2.2 million where they have been. And we would need to use some of the funds in the debt service fund, which can only be used to pay principal and interest on bonds as well as some capitalized interest to offset the payment in 26. It would result in proceeds of 4.6 million working cash bonds. This would be issued next February 26 and would have a 0 impact on the home in that it's simply extending that 2.2 million another 2 years. So here's the graphic there. You can see the green bars just go out another 2 years. And then this is a summary of all the impacts. So the current situation, as we mentioned, estimates an operating fund balance in fiscal year 28 of 22 million, all things equal. Estimated operating fund balance is 51%. Fund balance policy as described to Moody's is a minimum 50%. And I also printed your fund balance policy, which is currently on the website right there. And I know maybe you have policy later tonight. I thought I saw that on your agenda. Anyway, option 1 is the 8.6 million. So that results again in an 8.8 cent increase, $98 on the 400,000 market value home. Estimated operating fund balance in 28 is 30.7 million or 71% of expenditures for FY 28. Then we go to option 2, which is bond issue of 6.2 million, or 6,020,000, excuse me. And options 1 and 2 are bonds issued here in February of 25. Option 3 is February 26, just to be clear. Okay, so the impact of option 2 is $45 on the home, and that brings the fund balance in 2028 to approximately 65%. And then option 3 is issued in February of 26, 4.6 million bond proceeds, no impact to the taxpayer, and the fund balance in FY 28 is 26 million or 62% of annual expenditures. So that's kind of estimates, all things equal, give you a feel for where these options would put you and, in line with where you have been in the past and currently are. So I'm happy to answer any questions before I go into a possible timeline.
Any questions? Good. Mr. J had a question. Any order here?
I have one.
Yes,
So you were talking about the impact on the taxpayer for the different scenarios. What is the current impact to a taxpayer on the debt service that we have outstanding?
So the current debt service is 18 cents. So I'm just estimating that 18 cents, given that 8 cents is, or 9 cents is $97, I'd say it's about $200 on the owner of a $400,000 home.
Thank you.
with option 3, we intended if we were to go that route to lock that in now.
No,
We would
not
wait
lock it until next
to
year,
February
February 26th. And
2026.
the reason is, the option by definition says no increase over the 2.2 million.
Okay.
So we would need to use either district funds on hand or
Right.
more costly capitalized interest on the issue to pay interest until that debt service extension
Got it.
piece was available.
Thank you.
But Scott, option 1 and 2, we can do more currently versus waiting until February of 2026 for option 3. Option 2, we can gain on that extra million sooner and do the project that we have coming up this summer and next summer.
Questions? Okay.
No, thank you.
Let me go on to a possible timeline. If you were to go with option 1 or 2, what we would look at doing is, tonight, we're reviewing the options. I think there's some documents, that maybe Kenya shared with you. And we talked about a reimbursement resolution to kind of maybe pay yourself back for some of that Devonshire work. And then, the authorizing resolution is called the resolution of intent. We would come to the December 19th meeting and ask the board to approve the resolution of intent. That requires then a notice to go in the newspaper that says District 68 intends to issue blank, 6 million, 8.6, whatever the board decides they want to move forward with. That begins a petition period, and if within 30 days, 10% of the registered voters were to submit a petition to the district, the issue would have to go to referendum. I will mention the district has gone through this process every 3 to 5 years, every time you have issued bonds, working cash bonds, and you have never had a petition or even anyone pick up a petition. Not to say it couldn't happen, just history. Then on January 16th, the board would hold a public hearing on the issuance of working cash fund bonds, review a parameters bond resolution. Then in February, on February 20th, the board would approve that bond resolution for the issue of working cash, review a transfer resolution, and then sell the bonds around February 25th. This is really good timing because the deadline to get a levy on 2024 for bonds is February 28th, so you could access that 2024 levy for bonds. Then we would go ahead and file that with the county clerk, close on March 11th, at which time you would get your funds. And then in March, you would approve a resolution transferring those funds from the working cash fund into the capital projects fund to apply as you go forward with these projects. Any questions on the timeline?
I've got a question that relates to the timeline, but I think it might, Scott and Kenny, be more for both of you. Looking at the capital plans for future years, we've got these big expenditures coming up for the ECC and Highland, and then in 27 and 28, what we have is just 2 million for life safety. Is that kind of a space holder? So we may have
Less. Because we've pretty much done every building that we have in the district. We did James Stinson in
Right.
23, Devonshire last year, and we're working on Highland this year, and then the ECC. I didn't want to limit to the point that we didn't have anything there for any life safety issues, roofing issues, boilers, HVAC, that we may have not updated in the junior high that may have some issues. So it's a space holder. It could be 1 million, but it's just a space holder to have an assumption.
But at least at this point, famous last words, we don't anticipate
Yeah.
big expenditures such as those. Okay, thank you.
And I would just emphasize life safety items were accomplished in those projects as
Absolutely.
well. So
Oh,
this
no,
is
no,
more
I-
of a contingency space.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Pleasure. We now move on to our NTDSC report. I believe Jeff is covering for Noel, who's unable to attend tonight's meeting.
Yeah, I get to give the fun report this time in Noel's place. First, and probably for us most significantly, one of our teachers, Courtney Keenan, got an individual shout out from Old Orchard for all of her work with MTDSE students and staff. She does a wonderful job supporting them and was recognized for that. So way to go, Ms. Keenan, and not surprising. And I'm just really happy to see her get recognized by MTDSE for all of her work. The main focus of the meeting was a report from an organization called Local Area Network 41. The state is divided up into individual geographic districts or lands, and they do a lot of work not just with MTDSE, but a lot of their work does touch on what they do. And they gave a presentation on partnerships that they have with community agencies and not-for-profits in the area, including clothing centers, mental health agencies, our food pantry, the different villages that touch MTDSE, including Skokie, Morton Grove, Lincolnwood, Niles, others. And they've really done a lot of remarkable work. They, for example, have been able to ensure that there's clothing available for children with adaptive and sensory needs when they go to, with the need for clothing from, I can't come up with the words, I'm coming to the clothing pantry, but you get the idea. There was one child at NTDSE who was very adamant that they needed to have a purple coat as compared to what was available, and they were able to come through and help with that. And it was a child with very significant barriers to their emotional functioning that it sounds like a nothing, but it was huge for that child and that family. They are able to now offer halal foods in many of the food pantries in the region. Just really concrete examples of how they help the children and the families that they serve. They also have a partnership with the Illinois Autism Project at EYC, which allows them to provide free testing at Molloy, which cuts down on transportation barriers and wait times. So again, just really real life, real time things that they're able to do to accomplish for these families. One project also that they did is they were able to launch a mobile DMV center for students, which was super helpful, especially for those with anxiety issues, that they were able to conduct all the DMV testing on site at Molloy or just outside, as compared to having to experience the joys of a DMV, which I know we all look forward to every time our license is needed to be renewed. So it was just a great presentation on a lot of the different things that they do. They have added another 13 students in just the month of November, so they've had to reallocate staff again, convert another office into a classroom. They're beyond capacity at this point, and they're trying to find space. They're being creative. They're looking for additional spaces that they can use. It's a nice problem to have in the sense that they're so good that they're able to take on this number of students, but it's a tough challenge. They're well staffed, but they've been having difficulty filling a teacher spot for those that work with visually impaired students. They are considering having 2 staff members go through a training regimen that they would fund in exchange for a multi-year commitment to then work for NTDSE. They're going to discuss that more in the next calendar year at one of their board meetings. They are also working on transitioning their students into high school and working with D219 on that. And they have several other trainings coming up as well. One thing that they talked about at this meeting, which made me really happy because I heard about this when I got to substitute for Noel last year, is they have a partnership on hearing screenings with Lurie that when they first presented it, blew me away as far as what the services they would offer, the functional hearing aids and adaptive equipment they were going to offer. And this was the return to how is that going. All the feedback's been universally positive. They continue to work really well with Lurie. It's getting the outcomes they were hoping for. So it was just great to hear. And that's what Noel had to offer, and I can then offer legislative updates from EdRed, which is not nearly as fun to talk about. But there's going to be a veto session here in the state of Illinois, down in Springfield. It likely will not have a huge impact on educational topics. Most of that was done during the main legislative cycle, but there will be one, and they'll report back at the end, you know, if there was anything unexpected. The bigger thing that they talked about is that they had scheduled a presentation on changes in Title IX policy that came about through executive orders under the Biden administration. And without editorializing, nobody really knows what will happen with Title IX with the results in the federal elections, both in the executive and legislative branches. So they did go over what the changes were with a giant neon asterisk that we don't know how long those will remain, how quickly they might change. So that is going to be an area where all of us, and most of all our administrators, principals, and teachers are going to have to be very fluid and very flexible. I expect over the next 6 to 12 months, as whatever policies are determined get launched, and there are rumors they can be launched very quickly. So other than that, the legislative priorities were discussed that EdRed is going to be moving on in the next year. Among them were again, hoping to deprioritize the use of schools as polling places to give the schools more flexibility around election times, and also updating our state laws, and this won't really affect us as much, but on dual credit. When high school students are attempting to get dual credit and earning college credit at the same time for a course, trying to make sure that that is transferable as universally as possible. Instead of rolling the dice that you thought you were going to get a credit, you would get one at Oakton, you won't get one at Illinois State, you might get one at UIC if you squint right, things like that. So that was it. It's not as fun as hearing aid improvements and cool DMVs, but that's what we covered at the end of it.
Thank you, Jeff. We move on to the ISB Resolutions Committee report. Ms. Warshaw.
So when I go to the conference this weekend, the board pretty much unanimously agreed with the recommendations from IASB. So anyone in the audience if they're interested, we can go through them. But we all said, yes, do adopt the resolutions for dual language, EBF authorized charter school funding, tax increment financing, accountability, FACE law, centralized state agency for EHRs, healthcare coverage, and polling place amendment to position statement 2.08. We unanimously, with one dissent, said, yes, let's go with the do not adopts as well. So, cell phone usage, doesn't matter. Office of Inspector General, FACE law, EHRs for current employees should be considered. Criminal background checks should be reconsidered. So in short, when I go on Saturday, I will let everybody know what's going on.
I didn't see this because it's not on the same page, but are we expected to vote on the constitutional amendment? Did anybody else note that? I'm just looking at the pamphlet in front of me, yeah. Local school board delegate direction.
I don't think it's on the list though.
It does say it must receive a 2/3 vote of all delegates present and voting for adoption. So this is a constitutional amendment.
If the way that like even just how they're gonna move it, like it doesn't seem like it's happening, but it can happen.
It's not numbered.
No,
it's
Well,
a
it
whole
wasn't in
different
the-
thing, yeah.
it wasn't in the queue.
on that list.
Didn't have a checkbox or anything next to it.
And just to be clear for those who might be listening or watching, this is an amendment to the IASB Constitution, not to the Illinois State Constitution.
School boards are powerful.
Yeah, sure, but let's just, okay.
Yeah. And to note, these are just hopes of the school board, the state school board, in what they would hope to lobby for
and it comes from districts across the state.
Whether the following constitute, and I don't even see a definition of what the amendment is, so.
I didn't see anything to comment on or vote on in that page.
Article 11, Section 5, Parliamentary Practice, but there is no. Glad I wasn't the only one who missed it. And yeah, it'd be hard for us to vote for something we don't have any English. Wonderful. Anything to add? Any questions for Ann? Then we move on to our first readings. The board has received these first readings in advance. I'll go through the list just to announce the titles. And if anyone would like to stop and review them at this moment. The first would be 2105, the Ethics and Gift Ban. Next would be 2110, the Qualifications, Term, and Duties of Board Officers. The next would be 2120, Board Member Development. Next would be 430, Revenue and Investments. Next is 460, Purchases and Contracts. Next is 4150, Facility Management and Building Programs. And lastly, 4170, Safety.
Just for a little bit of context, press comes out every roughly 3 months. The November issue is out, so we have roughly 21 policies. Majority are mainly semantic updates, as well as potentially footnotes or legal changes that have adjusted items. You'll see Open Meetings Act is now referred to as OMA. So very, very small adjustments. So our goal here is to just phase in 7 of these each month for the next 3 months.
That's not a NAP policy.
Thought it was already.
Small adjustments.
Yep. Thank you. All right, we now move to our action items. The next item of business is the approval of the identified construction contractors and associated bids for the Early Learning Center project as presented. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the identified construction contractors and associated bids for the Early Learning Center project as presented.
Second.
Very exciting. I'm going to hand it over to Kenya. She's going to give a little bit of an overview. We have a very patient member of the Nicholas Associates team. Thank you very much, Dave. But I'll hand it over to Kenya.
Alright, so in your board packet, I provided you a memory summary of all the bids. We had 9 bids for the early childhood project. In there, give you a little background, worked on it. We had some assessments and evaluations and summaries of what it would cost. And now we finally up to that number of what it will cost. So Dave here, Nicholas and Associates, who's been kindly waiting. We'll go over some of the summaries here that's listed in the memo to give you a little bit more detail and be able to answer any questions you may have on them. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Kenya. Well, thank you all for having me. Again, my name is Dave Torres, Senior Project Manager with Nicholas and Associates. I've been serving as construction manager in the district since I believe 2016, so it's a privilege to be here, so thank you. This is probably one of the biggest projects that we've taken on here. Very, very exciting. Coming off of some of these renovation projects at Devonshire and Stenson, and now looking forward towards Highland, as well as the ECC. So, as mentioned in the memo here, we did collect bids on October 24th, so we packaged this project specifically into 9 individual bid packages. So the first is site and structural. So you can see here, Tor is the recommended low bidding contractor, and I can personally speak from experience. They're a reputable contractor. We've done a handful of projects with them over the years. So on this sheet, you'll see their base bid, and then there was also an alternate that was accepted by the district here in the amount of $119,600 that we've added to their base bid. There was an alternate that more or less has been rejected at the moment or put on hold for removal of the playground. That would be an identified cost for them should you change your mind and decide to proceed. With masonry being the second bid package, JAC was the low apparent base bid contractor. We've we've done a lot of work with them over the years, also a very reputable firm. General Trades was the low bidding, was RB Construction, so they have done some work in this district, a very reputable firm. Do a lot of work with them each year. Their base bid, along with, there was an alternate that has been accepted for this bid package as well, for some added security film in the amount of $29,000, so that has been added to their base bid amount on the bottom line, which you'll see. There was also a alternate, which was a deduct to change the countertop material, but we elected to keep the original base bid, so we did not take that deducted alternate. As it pertains to roofing, Metalmaster Roofmaster is the recommended low bidding contractor. We've done a lot of work with them over the years, no concerns, very reputable firm. Flooring and tile, ABM Commercial Flooring, also very reputable. They were the low base bidder. Fire protection was Nelson. We do a lot of work with them as well. Low Plumbing was the low plumbing contractor. Accomplished Mechanical was the low HVAC contractor, and Prospect Electric was the low electrical contractor. And DeFranco, Accomplished, and Prospect, along with Nelson, have all done work in the district before successfully. So all that to say, we were super excited about the bids we received. We had very competitive bids, which was also excellent. But you can see here the total base bid amount was $12,897,722, and we have a couple of alternates that were approved in the amount of $148,600. So our total recommended amount for approval this evening is $13,046,322. There's also here below, looks like we've got a total estimated project cost, which includes all of the fees that are not represented in the bids themselves. Are there any questions?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I'm not sure. Could you repeat the last line that you said that were not included? Because it may be answering my question.
Yeah, so this was the 13,046,322 is the contractor bid amount, so it doesn't include some CM fees, architectural fees, things of that nature are not included in this.
That wasn't what I thought I heard. And this may be a question for Kenya. Do we have any information on the BEP vendors that were involved? Do we have any BEP vendors?
Minority business owners. We can find out. I'm not, you know, if any of them are registered women-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses.
I don't offhand, but I can check.
I'll just add a thank you to Dr. Garwood, Mr. Berry, Ms. Jacobellis, Dr. Samajedny, just for really getting the ball this far down the field. It's been a really exciting project to walk into and to watch come to life. I mean, this is where it gets real, and it will benefit not only obviously the community and our younger students, but physically and aesthetically, it's going to benefit many of us that work on this street. There's a lot of side work that goes along with this, landscaping, trees have been added due to the Department of Forestry's feedback, so it's really gonna beautify a lot of what is already great. Even consistent signage is something we're looking at along Kenton, so a lot of just really, really great byproducts that will take a little bit of time and some pain to work through and a little bit of dust. But at the end of it, it's really exciting, so appreciate you for facilitating the process.
Everyone excited? Great. Thank you very much. Shall we move to a vote?
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturbins,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Bill Jordan,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Vonnegut.
Yes.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Our next item of business is the approval of the 2025-26 school calendar. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the 25-26 school calendar.
Any commentary?
No, we received a little bit of feedback around parent-teacher conference evenings that we had attempted to move to a Wednesday. We got some great feedback from staff. We moved it back to Thursday. It's enough of a window that allows for community members to potentially attend a conference as well as come to a board meeting. So that is the only adjustment that has occurred since November. Other than that, it's consistent with what was presented prior.
Wonderful. Any questions, thoughts? All right.
Stebbins?
Yes.
Warshaw?
Yes.
Bill Jordan?
Yes.
Hyatt?
Yes.
Vonnegut?
Yes.
Ruffner?
Yes. The next item of business is the approval of the e-learning plan, 2024 through 27. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the e-learning plan 2024 through 2027.
Second.
We did have some public comments, questions tonight. I don't know that they impact the overall.
Yeah, we
plan
did,
presented.
we did have two emails come in, one advocating for e-learning and then one expressing concerns with it and requesting to still utilize traditional snow days. I would emphasize that we would still have the opportunity to do that. I thought the public comment this evening around the criteria for determining it was a great question that we could follow up with. We also can work on adjusting our website to have an update on inclement weather procedures and when and how that's determined. This is a great contingency model. It's not one that we would want to ever replace the amazing instruction that goes on in our schools. We all learned that really difficultly in 2020. But I do use the example of last year as a time when some students could have pivoted in one building had we had a plan. And I think it's a great contingency structure to have in place, whether or not we end up using it ever or not.
I agree, and also just echoing what the public comment from, I think it was only first name was Jan, I'm sorry, but gave that as much notice as possible for families, both for the technical, getting their hands on the equipment reason for the younger students, but also to prepare for having kids at home and needing to keep them engaged. I know that's something that you and the administration work on regularly.
Yeah, I've never had as many weather apps on my phone as I do now. It's amazing.
That's all I read.
It's a side hustle at this point, I think, yeah.
All right.
Warshaw?
Yes.
Bill Jordan?
Yes.
Hyatt?
Yes.
Vonnegut?
Yes.
Ruffner?
Yes.
Stebbins?
Yes.
Next item of business is the semi-annual review of closed session minutes. May I have a motion?
I move to authorize the recommendation of the release of closed session minutes and the destruction of verbatim recordings of closed session minutes as presented.
Second.
Any questions? Nothing exciting here.
Bill Jordan?
Yes.
Hyatt?
Yes.
Vonnegut?
Yes.
Ruffner?
Yes.
Stebbins?
Yes.
Warshaw?
Yes.
Lastly, there was one request and a response for information under the Freedom of Information Act during the period October 12th through November 14th. On October 4th, the district received a commercial request from Sherry Reed from Data Acquisition Specialist requesting purchase order and vendor information. The response was sent on November 1st and not by Janu Joseph. If there's no further business to come before the board, I call for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We don't need to vote. Adjourned. Thank you.